I am your co-host. I am Mary Poplin. I'm a product specialist for Boris FX and Mocha. And we have an exclusive discount on Mocha for every attendee of this webinar. You can get 10% off Mocha Pro, all available options, with the code WebJan18, and that ends on Friday, February 2nd. You can find our recording online within 48 to 72 hours, or you can just join our community by going to borisfx.com and joining our forums, or you can go to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Vimeo. I'm going to pass this over to Clark. Clark, are you ready to present?
I believe I am.
Wonderful. I'm going to make you the presenter.
Got it.
And let's get started.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome. First off, I'm really grateful to be here because I am a huge lover of Mocha Pro, and I've been using it for quite a long time now, probably about 10 years, and it has saved me quite a bit of time. Mocha advertises itself as cutting your roto time down by a third, and that is very true, and that is why I use it so often. And I'm here to show you the basics. So I guess let's get started. We have this shot here. And why I chose this shot to start with is because, as you can see around this area, you have a guy's hand going in front of the horse, and it goes into sort of a blurry area. So let's pretend that we are tasked to roto this horse's head when it has something moving in front of it, and it becomes blurry, which point trackers would probably have a difficult time with this. So we're going to use the Mocha plugin. So if you go into your tab and type in Mocha Pro, you can see where it comes up. Attach the source to the source, and then we're going to launch it from here. And there is our shot. We're going to play through it, have a nice look at it, see where we're going to begin. Very nice. And then I'm going to sort of, I guess, go for my approach. What is my approach? I've got to do this horse's head. First, I'm going to select my splines. And my options are X splines versus B splines. I am more of an X spline girl, whereas some people are more of a B spline person. The reason why I choose X splines is because generally it is sort of a rope and pulley system versus B splines, which is a handlebar system. And rope and pulley tends to use less keyframes. So I'm just gonna like do a track around this guy's head. Zoom in. Selector, let's round her off. And what I love about Mocha Pro is that the track and the shape can be used as one. So let's like track forward a little bit, see what happens. Oh, nice. So it goes a little bit wonky right when that phone passes over the horse, which is great because I'm going to show you how to fix that. But otherwise, as you can see, it tracks absolutely beautifully.
Perfect. Did we talk any about how Mocha is reading off the timeline and actually reading the read node from NUKE? So it doesn't matter what your codec is, as long as NUKE can read it, Mocha can read it?
Exactly what you said.
Wonderful.
So I am looking at my shape here. And as I said, it starts to like go a little wonky. Where is it? Like it grows a little bit. Where it is, this guy's going over it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to turn off my scale, rotation, and shear, and I'm going to step through right about here. Nice. And it looks like we kind of, yeah, we fixed it. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to use the same shape that I did to track to make more articulate roto. I'm going to try and do this as fast as I can so I don't bore all of you. And sort of the key in Roto is to, I'm moving one by one, but you know, the key is to sort of grab as many points as you can and move them all together. You can't always do that, but it's always best to, so you don't get, you know, certain jitters. I'm gonna add a point. You can add a point at certain times. You know, get that going. Awesome. And now let's see how, now that I've articulated it, let's see how well it works throughout the shot. It kind of plugs all the way through. So I'm going to go to the beginning, right? I'm going to select these things, bring them in. Yeah, I love it. You know, obviously this could be tighter, but for the sake of exercise, I'm just going to bring them in. Okay. There's a blur right around here, and I'll show you how to feather that in a second. But for now, I'm just going to bring everything in to the blur lines, to the edge of the blur, just so I can feather it later. Yeah, excellent. Okay, it's going to grow. It's going to go there. Oh, by the way, for those of you who don't know, we're going to use X to move the shot around and then Z to zoom. Helpful. All the, you know, I wish that every keyboard shortcut was universal in every software, but it's not.
I want to just address a question that somebody's asking right quick, which is somebody's asking is when selecting the shape around the horse's head, should it include a little bit of the background or go inside the outline, or can it be exact shape? What results in a better track? Well, actually, moving your shape a little bit outside of the object that you're tracking, just a little bit, like a couple of pixels, will actually help Mocha track the shape better because it actually can look for that change in texture to recognize the edge. But you are perfectly fine to draw an articulated mat around the object if you want to and track it. You're going to get limited results with tracking articulated mats, though, because as the object turns in space, you know, your articulated mat might not give you as many details as you had to begin with.
And I'm going to agree with Mary on that one. It kind of sometimes, it all depends. It all depends on the shot. But yes, using part of the background is often very helpful.
Perfect.
Okay. So,
and I have another question I just want to pop in real quick, which is, does Mocha work the same way in After Effects? And absolutely, Mocha tracking and roto shapes work the same whether you're in Mocha for After Effects. That's the free version that's inside of After Effects under the Mocha, animation window track in Mocha AE. Pop-up. Also, this is the same Mocha that is inside of the BCC and Boris FX Continuum tools inside of the Mocha plugin, inside of those tools, and also inside of the Sapphire tools. And I do want to show you when Clark is on with this, I want to just pop up the Sapphire tools and show you that Mocha is available inside of them as well. So Mocha Pro, the standalone, Mocha Pro, the plugin, Mocha for After Effects, and the Mocha that's inside the Sapphire and BCC tools are all the same Mocha. They just have different exports and different ways to utilize the data.
awesome. Okay, so as you can see, I pretty much finished this horse head, and it right around here where it starts to blur, I am going to sort of feather it a little bit so that it goes along with the blur, using that as a keyframe. Bam, I did that whole head, as you can see, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 keyframes, which is pretty impressive, and really, really, really fast. As you can see, it just whizzes by there. So we have two things that we can do now. We can, the old-fashioned way, we can export the shape and tracking data, where we form it to a NUKE roto shape, or what we can do is we can just save our work and close out, and it is there for us.
Perfect. I do want to address somebody else's question about blurs and tracking through blurs. Because Mocha is a planar tracker, it should be able to track through most blurs, including lens blurs, focus blurs, and motion blurs. So if you're having trouble tracking through a blur, it's probably because you don't have enough texture. Try increasing your shape, and that will give you better results. Notice Clark is tracking the whole head here when he's making his roto shape. That is why he's doing such a good job of tracking through the blur.
And what's great is what I'm going to show you now is just for this purpose of time, I rotoed this whole this whole girl here, and the horse. And what's wonderful is that that horse head that I did, you can attach other shapes to it, so it can be a shape and it can be a tracker at the same time, and everything tracks pretty darn beautifully. I think I did this. Mary, how long did it take me to do this whole thing? Like a half hour?
Yeah, about a half hour.
So I don't know. And with a pointer tracker, it probably would have taken me, I feel like, hours. So it's just really darn helpful. Okay, so moving on.
Can I get you to show the where the Mocha is in Sapphire tools real quick, just to point out that that it's the same across the board in any Mocha piece of software?
Oh, tab, sap.
You can do like S_blur, or you can just hit the Sapphire button on the far left side.
Yes, I know of it as here. And you have all these various options to all the things you could do, which is very, very helpful. So I'm going to move on to like the next shot. So here we have this guy typing. And let's say our task is to use the corner pins to do a screen replacement, which, by the way, I feel like that's, God, almost like 80% of the work that I do is always screen replacements. And that's why I love Mocha, because their corner pin tool is spectacular, which I'm going to show you right now. So we add this to our source, and we're going to launch again in UI.
Can I ask you one more question about Roto real quick?
Yeah.
So we have a user asking, where should the spline sit on a foreground edge when you're doing roto? My instinct is to want to leave as few background pixels in the foreground roto shape as possible. How do you do that?
If it's articulate roto, absolutely, it should be as close to the edge as you can see.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Did I answer that question okay?
I think so.
Oh, nice. Okay, thanks. So what we're going to do here is we're going to try and do a screen replacement, which is just really satisfying and fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the shot, and I'm going to go through my approach again. And if you notice, I have hands and I have like apples and focus going in front of the screen, but I have this really nice portion of screen that is pretty blank and it is like easily trackable. So in order to not track any other planes, I'm going to just do a nice sort of square over this guy, right? But I'm going to select this, which is the corner pin tool, and I am Z for zoom, remember. I'm going to move the corner pins using this handy window on the left. You can see where it gets right to it. I'm going to put these guys into place. Because his hands and the apples are sort of obstructing it, I'm going to kind of guess as to where the screen ends. But I think that, let's move this baby over. I think that should do it. And, oh, I started over here, so I'm going to track back for one. And then I'm going to track forward. Let's actually bump this baby, minimal pixels used, bump it up a little bit, and we're going to track forward. As you can see, it is tracking beautifully. Oh yeah, beautiful. I have a little bit of like a focus that still holds on to. Excellent. I'm going to scrub through. For purpose of this exercise, I'm going to say that I like that track. So now what we want to do is we want to replace the screen. And what I love, love, love about Mocha is that it allows you to, especially with corner pins, sort of check your work. So over here in Insert Clip, I'm going to give it an input. We could do the logo. I like the logo because, you know, free advertising. And we're going to just play it back. Yeah, not bad. Listen, in my day, I have seen tons of terrible screen replacements that have passed on TV that no one has noticed. So for now, this looks fantastic, which I really like. So we are going to save it. And then we're gonna close out. And also for the purpose of exercise, I sort of already built something for you. So up here we have our insert, which is, you know, just something, a Boris FX thing that we just pulled together to put for the screen. So and then we have where you see it in Mocha, where we've adjusted it. Back to here, here's our original plate. Because if you remember, there's sort of that blur. I added a blur, and I animated it in front, and I animated it to blur along with it. And then we're going to merge that. So look at that. Oh, but there's a problem. As you can see, it looks pretty good, but we have it in front of the apple and the hands. So I'm going to now, if you remember, I told you you could export to a Roto node in here. We've got them right there for us. And then I'm going to merge them again. And look at that. They're right in front. Turn this off so you can see it. Let's play it right back. And it looks good. You know, obviously there's a lot of touch-up stuff that I can do, but for the purpose of this exercise, it looks pretty damn good.
Do you know, it's funny, somebody was like, oh, so could you get rid of like the horrible bruises on the apple that have been driving you crazy for days?
Oh my God, I've been talking about those apple bruises forever. And yes, you can. Hopefully, if we have time, maybe I'll paint some of those out.
Can you talk real quick about how you apply the insert though? Did you talk about that and I missed it? Where you apply the insert using the Mocha Pro tab for the insert?
I don't think I did. Go for it.
No, you go ahead and show us. So basically, you launch Mocha, and in the Insert tab, you know, you can apply your insert like, you know, we did with the logo on the screen earlier.
Oh, right. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes. Okay. So it has to be up in here. But in your insert, where I have the screen right here, and then you over in Insert Clip, you hit Insert Layer, which is really important because that's where your insert goes, and so that's how it pipes through. Did I do that okay?
Yeah, of course. And the thing is it reads from your timeline, so you know you can bring any clip into NUKE, and you can use that as your insert layer. And it's just part of your comp. And then Mocha will actually calculate the motion blur for you inside the Insert tab. So if you click on the Insert tab, you can see to the far right, there's this option in the Insert tab. There's an option for adding motion blur.
Oh yes, absolutely.
On the right-hand side where it says motion blur.
On the right-hand side where it says motion blur.
So there you go. I just wanted to point that out so that people understand how to apply that. You can also apply it with a corner pin, but you know, your mileage may vary depending on what your preferences are.
Beautiful. So moving on, that was a really basic and really quick screen replacement. And as for the apple, thank you for asking about that. I'll show you in another shot where we can use the paint tool and we can very quickly paint that out using a frame hold and then using the insert tool to copy it through. But I really wanted to get into articulate roto for a second. So here we have this shot. And this one, I don't like saying it's hard because I personally don't think that everything, I don't think that anything in Roto is necessarily hard. It's just really time consuming. And what's great about Mocha is that it helps with the time consuming stuff and it deals with stuff. So we're gonna Roto his hands here for a second. And as you can see, they're going in front of each other and they're waving around, and that's just like a lot of stuff going on. So what I'm going to do is, once again, launch Mocha. Add my source. In the UI, I'm gonna pull her up again. I'm gonna play her through. All right, so I'm gonna focus on these hands here, this left hand. I'm gonna get in there, find him when he's really splayed out, really clear, and I'm going to draw an X-spline around. Maybe I'll give him a mitten in some places. Definitely. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm definitely going to pump up the amount of pixels used. But the next thing I'm going to do is over here under angle, you have the ability, and this is what deals with the rotation, is we're going to pump that up a little bit. It's like, I don't know, let's keep it to like 30-ish, right? And now what we're going to do is I'm actually going to step through this because I know there's a lot of motion, and if I hit track, it might operate a little bit too fast. So, but it's actually catching. It's catching nicely. Look at that. And you
Can you go over a little bit about layer order and how foreground layers are held out of background layers as you track?
Yes. So it's all up in here in layer controls, and how they're stacked is sort of how they lay out in the shot. So if and I'll show you in a second. I'll make another shape and then I'll put it ahead of it so you can see that it like what priority it goes in. Hang on a second. We're gonna go through this. Oh, that's great. I'm gonna step forward it again. Sorry if this is boring, but I like to take my time and really watch to see how the track is going. Operating pretty well. Yeah, nice. Okay, so now I want to do some articulate roto. I really want to, separate out his hands. And so what I like to do is, this is just a track. So what I like to do is, well, first we should label it. So let's call this track. And then
I like to label layers because then my coworkers don't murder me.
yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot of, if you forget, and by the way, everyone forgets and I always forget. And so there's a lot of times, where it's like layer 27 and you're like, I don't know which one that is. You can get a little hornet's nesty, but there is this wonderful organization tool up here too that allows you to put things in groups and folders, which is highly appreciated when you keep everything organized. So I'm gonna go back here to the start frame, and let's just choose one of his fingers here. Okay, so look at that. Remember Z for zoom, so we can get around it. Yeah, sort of soften all these things up. It's fine. And that is going to be called finger, I guess. And then what we're going to do is we're going to attach finger to the track, right? And let's see how well it holds. Not bad, not bad, not bad at all. Yeah, look at that. So I'm gonna scrub all the way up here. It moved off a little bit here. And, oh, another thing to know, W for rotation. Really helpful.
It's rotation.
Wotation, yeah. So helpful. Then, I'm gonna apply the motion blur later, so I'm gonna kind of keep it on the inner. See how well that interpolates. It interpolates usually pretty magnificently. Great. So Command A, either Command A or you can highlight everything. rotator again. Oh, and if you want to like maybe resize it a little bit, shrink it, grow it, that's E. And that's also extremely helpful. Not bad. Okay, let's keep scrubbing through. Oh, there's a frame that's like super articulate, so. Zoom in, let's just, make sure that all my stuff is nicely lined up. Okay. All right. Trying not to bore you guys here, but.
Well, no, you're not boring us, but you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing and why?
Yeah, what I'm doing is I'm picking out certain keyframes. I'm sort of scrubbing through and letting Mocha interpolate kind of where the shape should go, and I'm sort of filling in the blanks now with keyframes so that it will pretty much follow it almost by itself. In Roto, that sort of keyframes are kind of like part of it. And as I said, without Mocha planar tracking and point tracking, you tend to have to make a lot of keyframes where you really have to manipulate this a lot because you just don't get things like rotation. So yeah, I'm filling in the blanks where it's not interpolating. And Mocha usually interpolates magnificently. However, there are certain really, really, really hard shots with lots of movement where it doesn't always get it as perfectly as you want, but it gets it pretty damn close. And so what you can do is use it to, in this case, to like I said, fill in the blanks. Does that help? Did that make sense?
Yes.
I think so. And I think we're almost done here. Look at that. Yep. Yep, yep, yep. Oh, nope. Let's get her at the end. What's nice is there's not so much motion blur that you can actually get a full finger to, let me see the parameters here. I'm gonna bring that down. Yeah. All right, look at that.
So
Not bad.
were talking in the questions, one of the issues that a lot of people have when they paste Mocha shapes back into After Effects or Nuke or whatever, especially if they're using a standalone, is that they don't find that their shapes line up with what they started with. The way to avoid that is to make sure that your aspect ratios, your frame rates, and all of that matches up from your Mocha file to your Nuke or After Effects file. In After Effects, you need to make sure you paste in your shape data on the first frame, otherwise it's going to be offset by that many shapes. So if you're finding that that's the case, it's usually an offset problem. Now, that being said, when you're using the Pro plugin, it actually matches your settings automatically, so you shouldn't be seeing a lot of difference between the Roto inside your plugin and the Roto inside of your host. And if that's the case, you should definitely file a support case with us because something's going wrong. Just letting people know.
Thanks. There's also these like really handy tools up here that I was sort of going through. If you you can check your mat this way, you can turn off your splines, you can see it. There's all these really wonderful ways to check your work. And I'm gonna save this and I'm gonna close out here. And then for the sake of exercise, I also turning all these babies on did it for you. So yeah, oh, I do not want my track on. You can turn them off over here. And I just did this pretty dang quickly. But I don't know, this also took me like, what, a half hour, Mary? Yeah, I mean, really quick. Really, 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 really quick. So when you have a lot of stuff to roto, like for example with stereo paint or whatever, this tool just really, really helps you cut down your time, and you can get that stuff in really, really, really quickly. And let's save this and let's get out. Okay, what do I got left here? Awesome. So now we have, using the paint tool, which, so let's just step through this for a second. Let's say that this our actress here, you know, she has a beautiful tattoo on her back, something that I would totally get. But let's say we want to remove it. So I'm trying to see how I'm going to approach this. I think what I'm going to do is, I already have it built for you, but for like a second, I'm going to add another Rotopaint tool.
We have tons of time for you to be able to go in and explain how to do this from scratch. So if you want to focus on this part, like how to do the paint, that's totally fine. You've got plenty of time.
Okay, I just didn't want to bore people with doing paint strokes, but let's watch. Let's do it. Okay, so we have a Rotopaint tool, and let's say that I want to remove this. I want to paint this out, and so I'm going to find like a really good spot. I don't know. I think 17 is really nicely. Let's do 15. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to select the clone tool. Let's bump it up to brush strokes. And then command is how you open it up here like this, right? And let's do one on her. And oh, I definitely want to have my viewer on her, otherwise I'm not going to be able to see what I'm doing. So command, let's see. Let's just paint in some of this stuff.
So I want to address a question real quick. As somebody asked about the percent of, like, minimum percent of pixels used, like, is that a magic number?
Oh yeah,
and,
do you need me to go back to it?
No, it's fine. You can keep doing your painting and I'll talk over.
Okay, great.
So what that does is that's the accuracy of your shape, and Mocha automatically calculates it based on the size of your shape. So the larger the shape, the lower that number will be. The smaller the shape, the higher that number will be. That is the percentage of the pixels of the texture that Mocha is tracking through the scene, and that's just your accuracy of your shape. Now, if you're tracking like a shape that takes up like a third of your screen and it's only tracking like 20% of the pixels inside of that shape, and you're tracking a shape that's like 100 pixels by 100 pixels and it's tracking 90% of those pixels, those are just as accurate. It's just that Mocha is trying to save you some processing time by saying, yeah, that looks right, and moving on. The lower the number, you do have the potential to slip, but the more pixels you're tracking, the less likely that becomes. So that's all it is. It's just the accuracy. It doesn't have to be a specific number.
Okay. So what I'm doing here is I'm just like painting through this, and I'm not doing the most amazing job. She may or may not look like she has like a bruised back. And maybe like blur it a little bit. Just a little bit here. Not my best work. Okay, so we have a decent frame. We did it on frame 15. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a frame hold, right? Because I want to ultimately freeze frame that like paint that I just did right there. I'll sort of build this along in parallel, but I already did. And what we definitely want to do is make sure that our frame hold is on the frame that we painted. So, yep. And then the other thing, I actually almost forgot this the other day, is you want to select all of your brush strokes here. And then in the lifetime of it, you want it to go through all frames. And now what we're going to do, this is done, we're going to open the Mocha Pro tab. We are going to attach to source here. And we're going to open it. Remember, frame 15 is a very important thing. I'm going to scrub through. So what we now want to do is roto around that baby, that tattoo, so we can pipe it through correctly through the mat. So I'm going to, let's just go back to frame 15 because I want everyone to remember that frame number because I always forget what frame I was using. Let's do this. Okay. All right. Let's just round it all off here. And then kind of want it to feather a little bit because I like it to just to blend in. I don't want to use a blur. All right. Beautiful. Okay. And now, let's save that. Go back into here. And, oh, I shouldn't have closed it out, but we're going to attach over here, the frame blend. And then, sorry, I got to relaunch her again. Oh, I didn't track through. Duh. I'm silly. So I completely forgot to track this baby through. I thought it was done. Okay, so I know, right? I do it all the time. So let's track this tattoo. Tracking beautifully. Went that way, looked good. Let's track her this way. Okay, awesome. Now, this is where it gets kind of important. Go back to frame 15. And I am going to first insert layer. Yeah, it doesn't look right. And then I'm going to align selected surfaces. Look at that. Beautiful. There is a clean-ish back.
Can you explain what you're doing when you align the surface real quick?
Oh, yeah. So that's what I was saying about frame 15 is so I'm aligning that one frame that I painted in NUKE with my cutout here, and so that they work with each other. I'll show you in. Let's save here. So that they work with each other in NUKE. And then the finished product here. Yeah, she's loading. So we have a, she's going to take her sweet time. If I wanted to do this in proxy mode, I could. I think it's Control P for proxy mode. But we are, I kind of want you guys to see it in all its glory. But, and there we have it. We have a finished piece of paint. Yeah.
Perfect. That looks really nice.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, it looks okay. It's like not my best work. It's a little smudgy around here, but you know, for the purpose of this exercise, I think it will work. That is kind of what I got for you guys. I am going to now, I guess, open it up to questions with Mary. Do you want to take over from here?
Sure. Let me see where we are on time. All right. So we have a couple of questions, and I just want to touch on a couple of things that people have asked. People are like, oh, so what is the track? Would you mind going back to the first example with the roto and the girl on the carousel?
Yeah, let's do it.
And I just want to talk a little bit just to make sure that everybody understands what Mocha is and what it's doing. And this is like the key thing for working inside of Mocha is you have to know what Mocha is doing. Mocha is a planar tracker, and that sounds like a buzzword. Can you open up Mocha? Perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
what it's doing is you're using a spline to create a track. Now, the spline that you draw is just where the track is looking. The track itself is actually the motion data keyframes that Mocha puts inside of its, its Mocha brain, essentially. The surface tool is a sort of blue tool that follows what the track is doing. So if you want to turn the surface tool on, Clark, it's the corner pin tool essentially,
Oh yeah.
right by the
Mm-hmm.
grid tool. Um, and
Oh wait,
that's what the
let me
track.
just create a
You
new
just
shape for you.
Yeah, you just have to select a new layer.
Mm-hmm. Oh wait,
Perfect.
well, hang on, there we go.
Yeah, I
Beautiful.
just want to explain.
There
It's
it
good
is.
enough. Okay, so the spline can actually be changed over time, and it will not change what the track is doing. The surface tool shows you what the track is doing. So that's what the keyframes are. They're the tracking data. But you can move the surface tool at any time in any shape, and it will still follow the track no matter what. So I hope that sort of explains what the track is doing a little bit better. The track and the shape are different, and they're both children of the track. The shape is a child of the track. The surface tool is a child of the track. What it's doing is following a texture through the scene, and that texture does not have to be constant throughout the scene. It just has to be moving similarly. So, like, let's say you're tracking somebody's face and somebody walks in front of their face. You can move that spline to their shoulder for a second and then back to their face, and you should be able to keep tracking. So let's see, some other questions. Um, do we plan to repeat this tutorial using hit film? If we have enough people asking, we're happy to do that. Um, and some people are saying, is there any online course for this? And yes, if you go to borisfx.com, we have uh, Starting Mocha. It's a series of tutorials that get you started just from absolute scratch. Um,
You
and
guys, there's so much information online that can really help you out when learning this. There's so many resources, and they're all extremely helpful.
Right.
I often reference them myself.
I have another question where someone's asking, well, Graham Hutchins is asking, the points are wrong when he imports his shapes from Mocha to After Effects. And that's because After Effects doesn't actually read X-splines at all. When you're rotoing in Mocha, you're using X-splines. When you bring them back into After Effects, the points are doubled up because it's converting them to Beziers. So if there's a problem where you're still seeing background pixels coming through, you actually need to roto further into the object. And for soft edges, sometimes soft edges just have to be rebuilt. That's part of roto. If you look at like the Alice in Wonderland movies, I know I used this in the chat as this example, but I just want to point this out. In the Alice in Wonderland movies, when they rotoed her to put stuff behind her, like visual effects, they actually had to rebuild like inches of her hair around her head digitally because you just can't roto half pixels of data in a raster image because that's just not the way it works. Roto's a vector image, and trying to make it match pixels exactly is a losing game. You're going to get as close as you can, and then if there's blurs where it goes transparently over an object or hair, you're going to have to rebuild that to actually get the data pixel perfect. Has that been your experience as well, Clark?
Yes, I feel like I've probably experienced everything at this point.
Right. So
Well,
how do you
no.
normally handle blurs? Like when you're rotoing an object that's blurry over a background, and do you roto into the furthest hard edge
That
and then
is
rebuild the object?
that is an age-old question that varies depending on uh, usually what the rotor that I'm passing off. So I work a lot with compositors, and each compositor has their own preference. They have their own reason as to how to approach motion blur. I've worked in stereo where they want you to roto to the hardest edge possible, and then you pass that off. But I've also worked in visual effects where they want you to capture as much of the motion blur as you can. But it's really, really difficult sometimes because, as you know, it is a blur and it has, it's like semi-transparent. So often, though, you also get the request to, especially in visual effects, to maybe make a garbage mat around it. And they will try and key the blur and the transparencies as much as possible.
Perfect. Um, so let's see. Um, So somebody asks if the actress were to that you were painting were to shift her back towards the left or right, obscuring her back entirely. Is it possible for Mocha to keep tracking the painted skin despite a temporary shift in movement? The answer there is yes, but like
Absolutely.
as she goes completely away from the camera, what you would have to do is you would have to do some manual keyframes just to keep it, pixel perfect. The thing is once an object turns so completely away from screen that you actually have to start doing manual keyframes, it's really unnoticeable. However, when you do track into a turn, one of the things you want to do is you want to jump ahead using manual track to the next good flat area you can find. And you actually want to track into the turn from both sides. You don't want to just, or you want to start a new paint node and then actually a new track and bring that in and blend them together on the turn away. Those are two different ways to do that. Let's see. We had some questions about caching. So it's actually using NUKE's cache. It's not using Mocha's. So, as long as your files cache through in NUKE, it should load just fine in Mocha. If you're having problems in NUKE with that, it needs to be troubleshot inside of NUKE. If you're using a standalone version of Mocha, you can cache it, and it will cache with Mocha. Can you link multiple splines to track at the same time? The answer to that is yes. Clark, would you mind
Yes.
showing that?
Link multiple. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
link to track.
I did a track of this girl's head. Let me turn it back on again. That was the one that I was sort of doing in the background. It's like not amazing, but and so then I attached this baby. So I can just keep on going. I mean, if I wanna,
Hmm.
let's like do her arm or
And see,
something.
that would be a good example where you'd get a better track if you held out the little pole in front of her face, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to tracking that with
Oh
the same
yes,
plane.
and you can do a subtract on that. Give me a second, and let me just show attaching one of them. Let's just call this blonde arm, and let's attach this to blonde track. So so now we have like two things attached to it, and then what Mary was saying is this pole here. Um, if I were to uh, possibly like I could put a track or put a subtract on this baby, so it makes it this information is no longer, so that when I do this track, it is not reading this poll; it is just reading the stuff around it, which is really, 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 really helpful. Putting subtracts on things and doing hold up mats for them is pretty killer.
Exactly. And I just want to make sure that we touched on this. When we were showing tracking the hand, did we talk about how increasing the angle percentage makes it a little bit easier to track?
We did it on the other, but I'm happy to do it again. Here, let's
Yeah, I
come.
just want to touch on these really quick. You don't have to redo it, but just
Okay,
angle and zoom percentages, increasing those
angle
values as you
zoom right
track.
here. You can see.
Yeah, increasing those values as you track can actually give you a much more accurate track. It takes a little bit longer because it increases the search area, but it can really help.
Oh, one thing to note, guys. I don't know if you noticed, I just turned off some gears and I like locked some things. One thing that can be very confusing, especially when you're first using this, is if you have multiple tracks and you don't turn off the gear or you don't lock it, it will link to another track, and you'll see it'll go absolutely wonkadoodle. And so if you ever encounter that, just remember that the tracks beforehand. You wanna turn off the gear or lock them in place before you write over
Exactly.
them.
And Clark, I have one more thing that I want to show people that I feel like we probably could have touched on. Can you save this and close it and go to the girl back paint shot? Um,
Mm-hmm.
Somebody wants to know how you would handle that if it were warping or if it were like a shirt or any of that. And I kind of want to show the grid warp tool really quick in the insert module.
Yeah.
So if you will launch the Mocha Pro that you're using to apply the paint and
Mm-hmm.
select the layer and go into the insert module. Um, let's see, under the warp tab under the insert
Mm-hmm.
module, you have to select the layer to get it to
Mm-hmm.
come up, and you have to hit show mesh. And what you can do is you can have several layers of mesh warp inside of this, so you could actually warp this as you go. And it's actually animatable, so if you needed that to dip into her back or warp along with an animation,
Nice.
you can do that right inside of Mocha.
That's
Um,
fantastic. It's almost like a spline warp or a grid warp in NUKE, which is also
yes.
really, really very helpful. Which I was going to say is if you are getting a little bit more advanced and you are dealing with warping, like this, like I said, you can do it here, which is helpful. But as you get more advanced and get into more paint stuff, the grid warp and the spline warp in NUKE are usually where it's at.
Yeah. Um, we have another question that I kind of want to address while we're getting through this is, can you elaborate on open splines? Open splines, you can just open or close them by right-clicking them. Open splines can't actually track if they're open, but you can open them after you have tracked, or you can link them to other tracks to get them to work. They're great for hair and ropes and things like that, but you'd still have to stroke them in whatever object you were in. Um, and we're getting a lot of really nice feedback and love from people, which is nice. So glad a lot
Oh,
of people are
I
saying
love you too.
hi. You're very sweet. Um,
Oh no,
and
they're very sweet.
Let's see. Another question, real quick, is we've come across an issue where we have a track that's 99% good, but for some reason there's a jitter or jump for about a frame or
Oh,
two, and then it resumes to normal. Do you have any idea what could be causing this? Yes. Usually what's causing that is an occlusion that you don't see, like a shadow flitting across your object or a highlight flitting across your object, and Mocha sees it and you don't. You can fix this really easily by inside of Mocha going into the dope sheet and just
yep.
deleting the problematic keyframes. So
Let me
if you
do
have
that.
like, yeah, if you want to show that, that would be great.
I'm going to
Um,
show it.
so
Oh,
yeah,
oops,
just
I didn't
select
have
your
the right
layer.
one click. Sorry, I'm going to do it over here. I'm going to click
It
this
doesn't
one.
matter.
I know. I just,
Sure.
so let's say this pole or whatever, like has some jitter. Oh, first I'm going to unlock it because I had it locked. But down here is your dope sheet, and you can see all of these tracks and everything like that. So I'm going to find the poll that I had somewhere in this long list of stuff. Um, oh, here it is. Sorry, I'm a little blind. And then go to where you want, and like let's say it's oh, because I attached this one. So let's actually, I don't have a track on that one. So let's just choose girl face, whatever. You go into your dope sheet and you just select, like let's say the jitter is like, you look at it and it's where these frames are, and you just delete them. And that's usually what I do. And then I usually make a keyframe before and after the jump, and it usually should follow through. I don't know, Mary, if you have another technique that you use.
No, that's pretty much what I do. You can also use adjust track, but adjust track is not good for 1 or 2 pixel jumps. Um,
However, the adjust track is really great for corner pins and actually like manually tracking corner pins. Do you want me to get into that really quickly?
sure.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the uh, let us go back to this guy here. Um, and actually, I think I have. All right. So we have our corner pins here, right? And so let's say, actually, yes, there was a perfect spot for this where it like becomes, where it gets blurry. Let's say that we want to have our points follow that. So what I do is where it starts, and then go into adjust track right here, right? And if you notice, we suddenly have highlights of our corners. So you can actually, you have to move them one by one, but where it moves, you can uh, snap those babies into place like that, and that way it sort of animates with the motion of the blur. I don't love how that looks, but for the purpose of this exercise, I can show you how to do it. So yeah, you can move each individual point. And as a matter of fact, so this tool um, I may or may not have used on a social media campaign in which corner pinning was like super important because maybe people's photos were being used, and so it was something that it was like a plugin that you could all your photos could be viewed in sort of like an artisanal video, and that was all corner pinning and making sure that those corners were perfect. And I'm pretty sure that I adjusted each and every one of those corners. So yeah.
Wonderful. I do want to touch really quickly. Somebody was asking, what would you do if the object was like rotating, like if you're tracking a ballerina, for example, and she's turning away from screen. Okay, so Mocha's not magic. It's not voodoo. It's as close as we can get to voodoo with computer vision, but you'll have to actually change your parameters there to get a better track. So what you want to do is you want to switch to translation only, and just follow the object that way. That's going to get you as much bang for your buck as you can if the object is rotating away from screen. And then you can just adjust your edges over time, and then, track things like the ears and nose and stuff as they pop around her face individually. It's going to be a lot of work to do that kind of thing. Mocha will save you time. But it's not a magic bullet. Another question is, how well does the remove module work in a plugin mode? Like, so for example, if we wanted to remove that pole over the girl's face, and the answer is it's going to depend on how much she's moving, how good our tracks are, and whether or not it's an organic or planar object. The remove module works best over planar objects, which is to say like backgrounds, trees, walls, floors, etc. It doesn't work great over moving people. That's still a lot of paint work that you have to do. But Mocha will still track the object, and you can hook your paint work up to that and save yourself a lot of time. We're going to need to wrap up here pretty soon. I just want to scroll through real quick and see if any questions pop out at me, because we are running out of time. But could you group different layers so that you could maximize the types of tracks in one shot? So you can group layers, but it won't have anything to do with your tracking data. Your tracking data is based on your layers individually, but you can group them by selecting them all and hitting the folder icon and grouping them into one. That makes it a little bit easier to keep track of your shapes, but it will not affect your tracks whatsoever. And then let's see.
We are almost out of time.
I think we're out of time. So
we're at 1 minute.
Yeah, so this webinar is going to be available online in anywhere from 48 to 72 hours. We're going to put it on our website, YouTube, Vimeo, etc. There is undo and adjust track, by the way, guys. You just have to go through and delete the the keyframes under adjust track. And as far as
hang on 1 second.
So as far as all of that goes, I do want to move to Jessie and let her announce the winners of the various
Bye,
prizes.
everyone.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Jessie, are you there?
Yes, sorry, my mic remuted itself. Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I want to announce the raffle winners. Congratulations to S.J. Knight, who has won the $1,000 gift certificate to Action VFX. Congratulations to Nasha Molisho, who has won a 1-year subscription to Mocha Pro. Congratulations to Juko Thomas Klein, who has won a 1-year subscription to Mocha VR. Congratulations to Mike Nalid, who has won a 1-year subscription to Sapphire. And congratulations to Diana Valencia, who has won the 1-year subscription to Continuum. You'll all be receiving emails directly from me within the next day. And I just also want to mention just one more time that you can save 10% on all available options of Mocha Pro. We have subscriptions that start as low as $195 annual subscriptions. If you visit our website, borisfx.com, please use the coupon code WEBJAN, as in the month, and 18. And you'll also be receiving a follow-up email that includes the coupon code as well.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you, Clark. Thank you, Jessie. Thank you to everyone for attending. I really hope you enjoyed the webinar. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.